children. So I don't know about you, but I've been spending a lot of time sitting, being stuck inside these last few days, and my back and my hips are getting really unhappy about it. So I came up with this workout, a nice juicy hip mobilizing activity to do. For this workout, you'll probably want a yoga mat if you have hardwood floors, and you might want a yoga block for something that we're going to do at the end, but otherwise no equipment needed. We're going to start laying down on our backs. Whenever I'm laying down on my back, before I start doing anything, I like to practice deep breathing. So here, I want you to gently let your hands rest on the base of your rib cage. And we're going to take 3 deep breaths. As you exhale, ever so gently, give yourself a little push in with your hands. Feel how your ribs expand out on the inhale and come together on the exhale. Ideally, we're feeling a lot of expansion through here and not just our ribs lifting up and down, but opening out to the sides as well. Once we've done our breathing, we're going to lift our legs up. We call this tabletop in Pilates. And when I'm in this position, I'm thinking about trying to maintain tension from my ribs to my hip bones and tightness through my belly. So I'm trying to pull my belly button away from my shirt, and I'm trying to keep that sense of drawing in through my rib cage. My hands can rest by my sides, and as I exhale, I'm going to tap one toe. Inhale, lift it back up. Exhale, tap the other toe. So as I'm doing this, this isn't changing at all. My ribs to my hips is staying tight. The farther away my leg goes, the more I have to work to stay tight. And I'm thinking about my belly button almost like it's trying to pull up towards my rib cage. My back doesn't need to be super pressed down into the mat. I'm not curling my pelvis. I'm trying to stay neutral. Let's do just a couple more here, finding some connection through the abdominals. And then we're going to let the feet rest. Now, same idea with how the abdominals are working, trying to stay tight and connected. And I'm going to open one knee out to the side, only allowing it to move as far as I can stay still through my trunk. Inhale, lift it back up. Exhale, open out to the other side. And I'm also going to pay attention to my leg that's not moving. You might want to counterbalance to feel like you're opening this leg out farther, but that's not helpful. We want this leg to stay completely still. It should be pointed straight up to the ceiling. And again, as my leg gets farther away from my body, I have to increase the tension from my pubic bone to my ribs in order to keep my pelvis from twisting. We'll do one more to each side. Exhaling as you open, inhaling as you lift. And then we're going to take the arms to the sides. We're going to do an articulated bridge. So for articulated bridge, I'm going to start by curling my pelvis. Now I am pressing my low back flat into the mat. When I've curled as far as I can, I'm going to start pushing my feet down and peeling my spine up and off the mat, nice and slow, exhaling as I go. I'm thinking about my knees pressing out over my toes, my heels pressing into the ground. My glutes and my hamstrings should be working here. My ribs have not lifted up. So I'm keeping that same sense of connection through the base of my rib cage as I was doing when I was laying down with my butt on the ground. Once we get to the top, deep breath in, and as you exhale nice and slow, curl back down. As I come down, I'm trying to get back all the way into that curl, like I don't want my butt to touch the mat until the very, very, very end. And as your butt arrives, deep breath in, relax, and we'll do it again. Exhale, curling, pressing down with the feet. And I'm thinking about trying to pull my pubic bone to my ribs the whole time, reaching the knees out over the toes, neck and shoulders are relaxed. My arms can gently press into the ground just to give me some more stability. And exhale, curl back down, long, low back. We'll do that one more time. So now we've woken up our abdominals. We're going to come up onto our hands and knees and wake up our spines just a little bit more. So in your quadruped, you have a couple options here. First, you can be flat on your hands. If that's uncomfortable, you can come up onto your fists. If you have hand weights, you can hold onto your hand weights and put them on the mat. And if you really can't weight bear on your wrists at all, if you have like an ottoman or a low chair or something, you can bring your elbows onto that, and you're just trying to get as flat through your back as possible. I'm going to be on my hands. So here, my hands and wrists are right underneath my shoulders. My knees are right underneath my hips. And sometimes it feels like your hands need to be closer to your knees than you think they should be. Often people try to set up with their hands way out here. So maybe walk them in just a little bit. We're going to spread fingers super wide and think about gripping the ground. And I'm thinking about trying to close my armpit. So I'm squeezing through here and pushing the ground away. My neck is long and relaxed. And I'm going to start by curling my pelvis. So we're going to do like a cat and cow motion, but we're going to do it sequentially. So pushing hands into the ground, I'm going to start tucking my tail. I'm flexing my low back. And then that's going to move into my middle back, my upper back, and my head drops at the end. My shoulders are still down away from my ears. I haven't allowed them to lift up like this, but I'm still pushing into the ground. As I reverse this motion, I'm not going to stop pushing my hands into the ground. So my tail lifts, my low back extends, mid back, upper back. I'm thinking about pulling my chest through my arms and letting my head lift up. But I haven't allowed my shoulders to sink or creep. Now here I'm going to keep my head up. And as we go into our next curl, you can think about gently pressing your hands forward. My head's going to stay lifted as I start curling my pelvis, flexing my low back, mid back, upper back. Head is last. And now I'm going to think about trying to pull my hands in as I lift my tail. Extend the low back, mid back, upper back, head. Shoulders stay strong. We'll do one more, pressing forward, curling. Really trying to move one vertebra at a time through the spine. And hands slide back and lifting the tail. And from here, let's sit back on our heels, and we're going to come up into a half kneeling position. So for half kneeling, our kneeling leg, knees directly underneath the pelvis. Front foot, heel should be under the knee, and you want to be weighted on your back leg. So here, you should be able to lift your front foot off the ground, rather than if you were here, you really have a lot of weight on the front foot, you couldn't pull it up. So weight on the back leg. We're going to think about tucking the tail, so trying to draw up through the pubic bone. You're engaging your glute on your kneeling side. Front foot pushes into the ground, and then try to pull your leg towards each other. You should feel quite a lot of active stretch through the front of this kneeling hip, and I'm really trying to stay in that tucked position the whole time, keeping my glute on. We're just going to take a few deep breaths here. I'm trying to keep my spine nice and straight. I don't need to lean forward here. We'll do one more deep breath. And then we'll switch legs. So again, weight on the back knee, tuck the pelvis, squeeze your bottom, push your foot into the ground, try to pull it back. Staying upright through the spine, shoulders are over the pelvis, staying engaged through the belly the whole time. Find that tension through your legs, active stretch through the front of the hip. You're going to come back to your first knee, and your opposite leg is going to come up in front of you, but you're going to open it out to the side a little bit. So here, if I was seated with my legs in a straddle, I want this leg in the same angle of my straddle, maybe a little narrower if you have a really wide open straddle. And I want my hip bones level and pointing forward. So if your leg is too far back, it's going to lift your pelvis up, and that hip bone is going to be higher than the kneeling hip bone. So really allow that leg to come forward, but my foot is quite turned out. Here, hip bones pointing forward, I'm thinking about that curl through my pelvis again, and I'm going to press my hips forward. As I do that, I am going to go to the side. But I'm not thinking about shifting to the side. I'm thinking about pushing forward. I'm maintaining tension through the front of my body, so I'm trying to draw up through my belly button the whole time. The deeper I go, the lower I go into it, the more I have to pull up on the pubic bone in order to maintain a neutral pelvis. And we're trying to feel how this bone, the femur, rotates in the socket. The lower we go. Should feel pretty good. When I come back upright, I'm pushing this foot into the ground to lift me up. And I'm really staying engaged through this glute the whole time. Let's switch sides. So finding that open position, maybe a little more in front of you than you think. Hip bones are level, drawing up through the pubic bone, squeezing the butt, and then think forward, but you'll shift to the side and push to come back. Let's do one more. Stay tight through the belly. Good. All right. I just realized that I misled you. You will want a yoga block. You could have a small exercise ball or even a pillow for this next part. I'm going to grab a yoga block. So we're going to go into a side lying position. You can use your arm for a pillow, or if you have another yoga block or an actual pillow, you can put that there. Here, I want my hips stacked. So this hip bone is right over this hip bone. If I'm relaxed, I'm quite crunched through my waist, right? Because I have curves. So I have to think about pushing that hip away a little bit. And I might have some space beneath my bottom waist and the mat. I'm thinking about my ribs, drawing in. And I want my sits bones pointed towards the wall away from me. So I'm not super curled here. Again, I want my back nice and flat. You can always scooch up with your back against the wall if you're unsure of what your body is doing. And knees can be straight out from the hips or a little bit more open. I'm going to take the block and I'm going to put it between my knees with it on my thighs rather than at my shins. And here I'm going to start by squeezing just a little bit. I'm thinking about pushing down with my top knee rather than squeezing both legs together. And then we're going to go into a little internal rotation of the hip. So I'm going to start with a squeeze, and then I'm going to lift my foot, thinking about my heel reaching towards the ceiling, and come back down. Now you can take your hand to your top hip as you do this, because we don't want the pelvis hiking up as we lift the leg. We want to keep it really still. And as my heel's coming up, I might think about almost trying to push my knee that way to keep my thigh from coming up as I lift my heel. So again here, we're trying to just turn the femur in the socket of the hip without anything else in the body moving. I'm thinking about reaching from the outside of the heel. Be aware that your feet might try to be helping you, and it's not helping you. So just keep your foot nice and neutral. I'm still staying connected through the front of my body, so there's that tension from my pubic bone up. And I'm going to take the block out. I'm going to put my hand back on my hip, and now I'm going to do some clamshells. So for these, I'm going to roll a little bit forward so that my top hip bone is over my bottom hip bone. So I'm slightly turned towards the floor. I'm going to keep my hand on my hip because again, I want my pelvis to stay nice and still. And then I'm going to press my top knee up and come back down. So I'm thinking about actively pressing up, and I'm trying to find this outside of my butt rather than muscles around my hip bone. So if you're feeling this kind of in your front pocket area, try rolling forward a little bit more and put your hand all the way on the side of your butt and try to engage those muscles underneath your hand as you're lifting your knee up. If you find yourself rocking back, you can take your top arm and bring it across your low back to give yourself some tactile reinforcement to keep your torso still. Be aware here if you want to arch your back and stick your butt out, that also is not going to be beneficial. So after I've done 10-ish of those, I should be pretty fatigued through the side of my hip. We're going to do a whole full hip rotation. So I can leave my hand back behind my back to give me that reinforcement to keep my pelvis steady. I'm going to lift my top leg and then I'm going to pull it into my chest. I'm going to lift my knee like I'm trying to pull it into my armpit. And then I'm going to bring my leg all the way behind me until my knee is in line with my hip. And I'm going to do it again. Knee comes up, knee to armpit, up and around, trying to keep the knee and the foot up as you make this transition back. We'll do one more. You might get a little crampy doing this. That means you're doing it right. And then I'm going to reverse it. So pushing back, lifting up and around, knee to armpit, knee to chest, and down. Pressing back. Knee comes up and around, trying to pull it into the armpit, into the chest. And one more time in this direction. And rest. Probably pretty tired here in the side of your butt, so we're gonna roll onto the back. We're gonna put the foot of the leg we just worked on the opposite knee, and you're gonna let your bent knee press out. If you're pretty tight, this might be enough for you to feel some stretch in that side of your hip, but you can also pull your knee into your chest. And here I'm continuing to think about pushing this knee away the whole time. And that should really get into those muscles that you just worked. Take 3 deep breaths here. And then we'll do the other side. So, again, laying down on your side, head can be on your arm or on a pillow. Hip bones are stacked, knees are a little bit open or straight out from the hips. I like a little bit open, pulling your ribs in and thinking about reaching your top hip away so you have that little bit of space between your waist and the mat. Block goes between the thighs. And we'll do just a couple of squeezes here, pushing down with the top leg. Top hand can be at the hip. And then we're going into internal rotation, pushing down and lifting up. If you feel this internal rotation a lot right here, squeeze more. You'll feel it up here a little bit, but if this is where all of the fatigue is happening, it means you're not using your adductors, and you're going to activate them by squeezing, by pressing down. I'm thinking about pressing up through the outside edge of my heel and keeping this top thigh in place over the bottom leg. So knee doesn't get to pull up as we lift the foot. Still paying attention to what's happening through my trunk, staying connected through the base of my ribs. And then we'll put that block to the side and do some clamshells. So here we can roll a little bit forward. So top knee is kind of overhanging the bottom knee, and thinking about reaching out to press up. Again, you can take your hand across your low back if you need a little monitoring to whether or not you're rolling through your pelvis. Pay attention to that desire to arch your back as you lift your knee. You're going to stay tight through your belly to mitigate that. And I'm going to do 2 more because I always forget to count when I do these things. And then we're going to go into the hip rotation. So top knee lifts up, knee comes into chest, into the armpit, up and around, trying to keep the knee and foot lifted till it comes all the way behind you. You're probably going to feel your glutes and your hamstrings. And then knee comes into chest. Up and around. Knee to chest. One more time. Might be kind of unpleasant. Again, just means you're doing it right. And we'll reverse. Finding that up and over knee to armpit before it comes to your chest. last one. Fight through the front when your leg goes back. And relax. So we're going to come back into a quadruped, but this time we're going to rest on our elbows. So I'm going to start here, but then I'm going to lower down, and I want to keep my elbows right below my shoulders. Now here, you might want your yoga block again. So I'm going to show you the setup with the yoga block and then without. I'm going to tuck my toe and put the yoga block on my heel, and then I'm going to sit back onto it. So now I am sitting back so that my pelvis is no longer over my knees, but I want my elbows to stay under my shoulders. And I'm going to extend my other leg. Now, if you don't need the block, it's going to be harder. You take the block away, and you're going to sit back like this. And I like having my back leg flexed when I do this. Now, I really want to keep my low back still as I do this next part. So I'm thinking about lifting up through my belly and trying to maintain a little bit of tuck through my low back. I'm going to reach my leg towards the wall and lift it up. You're going to feel this a lot in your butt, like a lot. Again, doing it right. It looks like this if I'm sitting on the block. So it's just giving you a little bit more distance. The higher up you have the block, the easier it's making it. Whoops. We're going to do about 10. And then we're going to bend the knee and push the foot up. Still trying to stay still through the low back. Let's do 2 more. And then we'll switch sides. So drawing that leg back underneath you. Reset your shoulders. We should really be thinking about pushing the elbows down into the mat the whole time. Low back stays round and lift. Here as I'm lifting, I'm thinking about reaching my foot back. So I'm not just trying to lift it up, but I'm trying to touch the wall behind me with my heel. And again, pushing through my elbows the whole time so I'm not collapsing and sinking through my upper body. That's probably a good amount. We'll bend the knee and push up. Trying to stay connected through the belly as the leg is coming up to the ceiling. 1 more. And come all the way out. So we're going to stand up. We're almost done. And if you're not comfortable going all the way down into a squat, I want you to start with your feet, shoulder-ish distance apart. You're going to bring that block behind you, and you're going to put it right where you can sit onto it, and then stand back up. We're going to do a couple of standing roll downs. You can let your feet be a little bit turned out. You're going to relax your upper body. You're going to take a deep breath, and then head drops. Roll through your spine, letting your arms and the weight of your head pull you towards the ground. Lift your belly up and over as you roll down. When you get all the way down, you can let your knees soften a little bit. Reaching your sits bones towards the ceiling. Relax your upper body. And then we're going to curl. and stack back up. And do it again. Here we're really trying to move through the spine, one vertebra at a time. Deep breath at the bottom, relax your neck. Exhale, curl your pelvis like you're trying to tuck a tail between your legs to stack back up. So in the next one, we're going to use the block. Or if you don't need a block, great. Don't use it. We're going to roll down. Now, once you're all the way down, we're going to bend the knees, let the head and shoulders lift up. Try to bring your butt to the block if you need it. And then you're going to push back up, straightening the legs, drop the head. If you don't need the block, you're just going to go up and down. I guess that was kind of down and up. I don't know. There's a lot of ups and downs here. And then on this next one, we're going to stay in our squat or sitting on the block, whatever's comfortable for you. And I want you to try to open your knees up. You can use your elbows a little bit, but also think about trying to pull them open by accessing those muscles on the side of your hip. We just worked them a lot. So you should feel maybe a little more ease in finding them. Just a couple times. You can do a little rock from side to side through your feet. Hopefully you're feeling a little more open through your low back and hips right now. This might feel really good, whereas before it might have felt really bad. I think it feels good, but I'm weird. And then we're going to hands down, butt lifts up. Roll all the way back up. And we're all finished. Thanks so much. Hope everybody is surviving their social distancing right now. Hope this helps. Please let me know if you have any questions, make a comment, and I'll see you guys next time.